How could a loving father send his son away into the desert where he could die? The story of Hagar and Ishmael being cast out makes us very uncomfortable. Sarah's response seems completely disproportional. And then God tells Abraham to listen to her and cast out Ishmael, his son, and Hagar, the woman with whom he had Ishmael, both away into the wilderness where they might die of thirst. Could this really be an action of our father in faith, Abraham? Firstly, we should recognize that many of the actions of the patriarchs in Genesis are not for our imitation, but for our meditation. And with this scene today, I think it's helpful to meditate on how this isn't Hagar's first time in the wilderness. Hagar had previously fled into the wilderness after Sarah's persecution and jealousy of her. And there in the wilderness, God had promised Hagar that her son Ishmael would become a great nation. However, this time in the wilderness, when Hagar and her son run out of water, Hagar distances herself from her son because she can't bear to watch him die. This shows a complete lack of faith in God's former promise. Hagar either forgets or lacks the faith that God would do what he said and make Ishmael a great nation with many descendants and not to die in the wilderness. So even though Hagar is a serious victim in this situation, just because you are a victim does not make you virtuous or faithful. We can contrast Hagar's actions with what happens when God the Father, in the very next chapter of Genesis, will call Abraham and Isaac to go out into the wilderness, where Abraham, like Hagar, is thinking that his son will die. But even more extreme, his son is to die at his own hand. We know the story of what Abraham will do and how the angel saves him. But note about this, that the letter to the Hebrews in chapter 11 says that Abraham in this moment of testing had faith in God's promise that through Isaac his descendants would be named. And Abraham trusted this promise so much that he believed that God was able in this situation even to raise Isaac from the dead. Unlike Hagar, Abraham believed the word of the Lord with such a deep faith that we can even say he was the first human being to believe in the resurrection of the dead. This is why we call him in the Eucharistic prayer, Abraham, our father in faith. So perhaps we can see now how a loving God could send someone and send his son into the wilderness. In fact, God will bring each of us into the wilderness seasons of our lives, not to destroy us, but in order to test our faith, and ultimately to free us. God did not spare even his own son this test. Jesus was sent into the wilderness by his Father and spent 40 days there, tempted by Satan. He emerged ready to cast out demons, to inaugurate the new covenant, and bring about the fullness of the kingdom of God. So, when we are in the desert, will we be like Abraham and trust God even to the point of audacious folly? Or will we be like Hagar and either forget or distrust God's promises to us and end up dying in that desert because of our lack of faith? In the very prayer the Lord taught us, we ask the Lord to lead us not into a temptation or a testing beyond our ability to bear, but through the testing he does allow, to set us free from all evil and mature us through our faith and cooperation into sons and daughters of God. So today we trust his fatherly providence and his care to do this in us in the best way possible for us. So let us have faith.